What does commitment look like for us? It's just that every day knowing that we got each other's back. And I think a lot of it comes from our ability to be able to resolve issues.
Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Robert and Kay Lee Fukui, the dynamic duo behind I-61 Inc., are revolutionizing the world of business consulting by giving married entrepreneurs the tools to succeed in their ventures while ensuring they have the time to invest in their marriages. Robert and Kay Lee have come together to create a groundbreaking consulting program designed to help married entrepreneurs create a flourishing marriage and a prosperous business called Power Couples by DesignTM. Upon receiving his degree in marketing from San Jose State University, Robert pursued a successful 25-year career in the sales and marketing sector, serving renowned companies such as Coca-Cola, Novartis Pharmaceutical, and Bristol-Myers Squibb. Robert's expertise in sales and leadership proved integral to the successful launch of 6 major brands, resulting in a remarkable $150 million in revenue and numerous awards. His business acumen also enabled him to assist family businesses in optimizing their operations. Kay Lee obtained her business degree from the University of Laverne. She has a wealth of experience in the banking sector and family business operations, which she managed for over a decade. Kay Lee is committed to fostering and maintaining successful marriages while currently creating profitable businesses for entrepreneurial couples, demonstrating that it is possible to thrive in both without sacrificing. Welcome back to the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are excited to be bringing a fantastic couple in who really specializes not only in helping couples with their businesses, but in helping them with their relationships. We want to welcome Robert and Kay Lee Fukui to the Kickass Couples Podcast. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Hey, great
Thank
to
you
be
so
here.
much for having us.
This is a cool Airstream we're in.
Yes.
I love it.
You'll have to come camping before you say it's really cool. Tight spaces. Well, we are glad to be with you all today, and we always like to start off our interviews. And Kay Lee, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what you think makes the two of you a kick-ass couple.
Ooh,
Good
the two
question.
of us.
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, dude.
No, I think my husband and I, we did a couple of years of counseling before we got married. So I think we did a lot of resolve conflict
Yes.
over those counseling sessions.
Yes, we did.
And so I think that's really helped us a lot because we find out with our clients that a lot of times they get stuck in certain places and then they can't seem to get out of that or move forward. And then they start piling up all these things under the rug that we just can't talk about or off limits. So I'd say that's one of the things.
Terrific. And Robert, how about you? What would you add to that? What do you think makes the two of you kick ass?
Yeah, I think it's and I would say Kay Lee, she's very good about not accepting the status quo in our relationship. She's always wanting to do better, even when we only had 4 dates. And that's when she started to ask. That's when she suggested I go to counseling.
She's already fixing you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think just, she's a great partner in that, we can get stuck in a rut sometimes, especially when you're married. And, we're married 16, going on 17 years. And sometimes over time, you take things for granted. But Kaylee's very good about not taking things for granted and always looking to improve. And so she kind of pushes me along to do that. And she also knows that, in business, I like to keep making improvements. So she kind of knows how to push that button and how to improve, and so how to adjust that into the relationship. Because, as you never get to this point where all of a sudden everything's perfect and just kumbaya and everything's going to go well, but you always have to be constantly working at it. So, we'll do that for our business, but a lot of times we don't do it for our marriage. And so Katie is very good about just keeping things moving forward relationally.
I love that. Not happy with the status quo. Always, you've got an improvement and a growth mindset. That's great to hear.
Well, I like to ask couples when we meet with them a little bit about their history because I believe that we are, in many cases, a product of the people who raised us and a product of the environment that we were brought up in. And it really plays a big role when we come to a committed relationship. So, Robert, I would love to hear from you a little bit about your history and what love looked like in your household when you were growing up, how it was modeled for you.
Yeah, so I'm at the risk of throwing my parents under the bus. And they're both passed away, unfortunately, but they would agree to this. But my dad was a pastor, so I'm a PK, and so whatever thoughts you might think about what a PK does, I had a little bit of that. I wasn't totally rebellious, but I had a little bit of it. But it's interesting that as a pastor, and this goes across the board of people in ministry, apparently they don't teach conflict resolution and communication in a relationship in seminary or Bible college, apparently, because they didn't do that very well in our household. Now they loved each other for sure, and they showed us they loved each other, each other, and then us as kids. I just have one sister, but unfortunately, what was modeled to me as far as just good communication and conflict resolution was not modeled to me. The thing that was modeled was commitment, and so that I took into everything I do, from business and sports to relationships. So the commitment piece was always there. It was just the communication and conflict resolution piece that was not there. And so, unfortunately, like I'm not, I don't like conflict as a result. So not just relationally, but just in business too. And so that's something I've had to work through. And a lot of it came from when Kaylee suggested I go to counseling, and it became couples counseling within about a month. So all that, what did we work on in counseling was communication, conflict resolution. And so as I've gotten older and do that, as well as continue to work on it with our own relationship, even after counseling, I just became better at it, more comfortable with it, I guess. And part of it was just exercising it with Kaylee and having, as you're going to always have opportunities to improve your communication and to resolve conflict. And so that was my bit of my upbringing around that.
Yeah. And so, not having had that modeled for you when you came to your relationship with Kaylee, I guess there were a lot of red flags and things were not
Or yellow flags.
yellow. Okay. Yellow flag.
Yeah,
Caution, caution.
yeah, yeah,
Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
yeah, exactly. Really it was really Kaylee's idea, right? It wouldn't have been up to me. If it was up to me, I wouldn't go.
It wouldn't have happened.
But I was trying to impress, this young lady that I just met literally 4 weeks prior. And so I said, okay.
Right. But you all had the foresight to seek help and outside help, which I think is really important for our listeners to hear that it's okay and in many cases really good to do that. How about for you, Kaylee? What did love look like in your household when you were growing up as a child?
No, I we had very similar experiences. He's a PK. I come from a small business family, so entrepreneur. My dad worked 6 days a week, so he was never home. So the business became the mistress, and it was really challenging on our family. And like Robert, we we did conflict differently. We either slam the phone down on each other, we walk out of the room, get in the car, and you storm off. So we had all these things that were unresolved. And it was really challenging. It was like so many things we couldn't talk about or you didn't ask questions about. There was all these unknowns. And so people just walked around upset all the time because we didn't know what to do with all this bottling up emotions and we just explode on people. And so that was part of the reason of why I wanted Robert to go to counseling. Well, there's more story to that, but is we didn't have, I felt like I didn't have the tools to resolve things and to know what healthy looked like. Because if you're not raised in that, and even though I love my parents dearly, I just didn't want the same type of relationship that they had. I wanted more.
Sure.
And was there a time, did you two, before you got married, I know you were dating and then you went to counseling before marriage, correct?
Mhm.
So you all did that okay.
I would even say, I would even throw that, go an extra step, is that we started doing counseling before I think we were even dating, because we only had 4 dates. Like, I just met her online on a dating site. We had 4 dates, and then she's suggesting I do counseling. So, and I'm thinking, are we even an item? Are we really dating?
Wait, what's happening here?
Yeah, exactly. We hadn't, up to that moment, we haven't even had a disagreement, right? So I'm like, what is going on here?
Right.
So,
Right.
She's proactive. You
But
gotta
what
love
I
that.
love is that you both probably shared your background, your history, and the way love was modeled. And you decided that if we want this to go forward, we both need a little help to be brought to this relationship so that it can be healthy and successful.
Truth be told, Robert was married before me. He was previously married, and he married somebody that he met at church camp when they were in grade school, and they would see each other once a year. And one day, it was right before Christmas, he had married her, and she was going to work. It was the last day she was going to work before she was off for the Christmas break. They had all these plans together of all the things they were going to do. She was driving to work, and she got in a car accident, and she died.
Oh.
And I wanted to make sure, and I told my friends, my girlfriends, and they said, oh, well, at least you don't have to worry. There's no ex-wife. There's no, another woman involved. And I said to them, but he loves her and he would still be married to her. And I didn't want to feel like I was competing with a ghost. And so when I met him, I thought, oh my gosh, he has a big heart. It seems like a great guy. I didn't want to put my whole heart into it to find out a year later he didn't have room for me. So I wanted to find out earlier than later.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I
That's
appreciate that. That wasn't easy for either of you, I'm sure. And
absolutely.
what I find interesting, so when you all went to the counseling while you're dating, this is early in, right? Just after 4 dates, which I think is great. Did you all have a discussion and say, all right, this is what I had and what I didn't like and what I want, and the other one say, this is what I, did you guys talk about those histories and say, this is what we want to build together? Did that happen before marriage, or how did that come out?
He makes it sound so simple.
No, I got snookered in this whole thing. So first, so it wasn't so systematic as that. So what happened was, as Kay Lee shared, right? First was, am I in a proper mindset, heart set to actually have a relationship, right? Am I ready to not so much move on from my previous wife, but it's really to be able to be open to another relationship and not let that past interfere with our present relationship. So as I started going to counseling, first it was just myself, and then she would ask me. I'd pick her up for dinner afterwards, and she would always ask me. Basically, she wanted a recap from my session, and I'm thinking, I just went through an hour of this. I do not want to replay this over dinner, right? And so after a couple of times, I said, why don't you just go with me? And then you can ask your questions real time and get answers. And then I don't have to play this telephone thing, be the phone operator. So first she said no, because this is your time and it's all about you. It's not about me. And I said, yeah, but you have all these questions that I'm not going to think about. So why don't you just ask it there? So she did say, okay, I'll go. So she started attending with me. From there, it just kind of evolved, where basically what our counselor did was just take the present communication, the present topics at hand, and just helped us kind of go through it and resolve things, and basically real time giving us tools of how to communicate, be open and honest. Not that we weren't honest, but how to be like, because like I don't like conflict. So being able to share something that I think might make her upset, I don't want to do. Right. So that's the honesty piece, is just being able to share it. And then it went into the past, because as you're sharing, Kimberly, about our past, our history really, kind of sets the tone of how we do life and how we see things and communicate. That's kind of what she dealt with, right? That's when she started digging into our past, and then started to connect the dots of, what we're doing in the present and what's creating conflict in the present really stems from how we were raised. So it just kind of evolved, basically.
Right.
And did that process bring you closer?
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially when you start to dive into the past, right? Because usually as couples, especially in dating, it's more, I guess, surface level stuff, talking about, sports and school, that kind of stuff. But talking about the pains of the past, that's deep, right?
That's vulnerability and that's deep. Absolutely.
First, that brings you closer together, and it also creates the empathy that otherwise wouldn't be there when we have a disagreement.
I'm like, oh, that's why he does what he does now.
Right. It gives you understanding.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. I mean, it's fun to hear that you did a lot of this before marriage, because you're going to deal with the past sometime, and maybe all the time. And if it's not something that you confront with your partner, that person that you're committing your life to before marriage, and it's certainly going to happen during it. And sometimes that can be really difficult, because you don't really know what's lurking in the back, or anything that's, especially if it's unresolved or if the person hasn't faced it. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. And it kind of leads naturally in. We have 14 pillars that we think are present in all successful relationships. And we really like to focus on what we call the 3 C's. And those 3 C's you've already mentioned a lot about. Commitment is the first, communication, and then conflict resolution. But I kind of want to start with commitment. And Kay Lee, I'd love to ask you, in your relationship with Robert, what does commitment look like between the two of you? When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now.
Well, I think it started early on because I didn't have it really modeled to me growing up. So when he said he would go to counseling, then I knew he was serious. And there was also other challenges along the way of us dating. I didn't make it easy on him at all, but he stuck around. You know what I mean? Because I was used to people in my life.
Still
I was used to
here.
people like leaving all the time. Like they get upset and they leave, and you don't know if they're coming back. So I'd say commitment was a really big one. And I know now if Robert wants to do something, I really need to think about it, because once he commits, he's in for the long haul, which is
For good
good.
for good or for bad.
but, but it's not like 6 months later I'm like, oh, I changed my mind, or oh, I'm bored, I want to do something else. So I'd say commitment was a big one.
How about for you, Robert? Tell me what commitment, when you think of commitment in your relationship, what does that look like? And what do you all do for each other that demonstrates that commitment?
It's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I think just how, as Kaylee was sharing, that's kind of how I always am. Just, I'm a loyal person a lot from childhood. My dad just instilled that in me, just be loyal to a fault. And sometimes that creates conflict, because not in our relationship, not the commitment between husband and wife isn't the issue. It's my commitment outside of home, right? Whether it's volunteer work or being on a board of directors or something like that. That commitment level sometimes can interfere with us. But as far as what does commitment look like for us, it's just that every day knowing that we got each other's back. And I think a lot of it comes from our ability to be able to resolve issues. Because a lot of times when you don't have an ability to resolve conflict, and there's things that are buried under the rug, as Kay Lee was sharing earlier, and especially depending on your upbringing, like Kay Lee's upbringing was, there's a potential risk for the spouse to leave the home, because that's what happened in her family, right? So there's and when you have a conflict or a disagreement, an argument, or some kind of conflict, there could be in the back of your mind, especially for someone like Kay Lee with that background, that I'm not going to stick around. So I think that the commitment, the marriage, and the vows is one thing, but I think the ongoing ability to resolve issues just reinforces that I'm not going anywhere, she's not going anywhere, because we're going to stick it out. So saying things is one thing, but I think the actions behind what you say is the thing that continues to reinforce commitment, right? Because commitment has to be earned, especially when, again, if you don't come from a background, there's a risk that someone's going to flee. That in the back of your mind, there's always that thinking when there's an argument, especially. So having an ability to resolve issues and being able to constantly share with each other that we love you, I'm sticking this thing out, right? We're in it for the long haul. And then showing that ability to resolve issues, I think reinforces that commitment.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
You both shared with us a little bit earlier that you've already worked on communication and conflict resolution. That's something you've been actively working on as a couple. But I want to separate out communication and talk to you a little bit about communication, how you communicate in your relationship. You all work together, you live together, you play together. How do you separate that time out for communication and to stay emotionally connected to each other?
Good one. That's right up your alley, honey. Emotionally connected.
Yes, I love that one. Some of the things that we do, we have like weekly meetings every Monday at 3:30. We meet up and we'll go over our schedules for the week so we know what's coming up. We can go over our budget, finances, go over the calendar, like, oh, we're having a date night. Or it could be make sure we get on the calendar, or it could be we got a really busy schedule coming up the next week, and Robert's going to be working a lot. But in 2 weeks, he's going to take me out, or we're going to go do something fun because we love to play. We find that a lot of couples are either too busy, they don't know how to play, or they don't want to make time for it. But we love it, and we find that's one way to connect. It's just getting out, nature, having fun, laughing, enjoying each other, and just relaxing.
Sure. Robert, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that being intentional time, as Kay Lee was sharing, we have our weekly meetings that kind of goes over a number of things, business and personal. And then there's just that intentional time of, like say, once dinner time hits, right, there's no business issues. There's no texting, emails, whatever, no discussion about business from dinner time on, so that we have time to connect, right? Because even if you don't work together, but there's always a lot of the conversations, a lot of times goes over just routine stuff around the day, but not about what's your hopes, dreams, and visions, that kind of stuff, right? And what are you dealing with? How can I help you? And so a lot of times those things don't get discussed because they're just kind of going on the fly without intention. You're just two ships passing a night sometimes. So having those weekly meetings is one thing, but even knowing that once dinner hits, it's no business talk. And then of course we have to scheduling even our date nights and stuff like that, and be intentional with carving out time and protecting time to stay connected, and especially when you're working together, it can be very easy to just run and, like, even when you're not working, just be talking and thinking about business.
And then we'll even do like quarterly getaways for the weekend. We put that on the calendar because if we don't get it on the calendar, you're going to get busy doing other stuff. So we try and get that on there first before the calendar gets filled up.
Yeah, blocking out time for what's important.
Absolutely. I love hearing also that you are committed to protecting your evening time. I think it's really easy when we work together to get caught back into those conversations in the evening and sort of let them slip in. But being intentional about not doing that is great advice for
our listeners.
Yeah, I like that kind of.
And you have to hold each other accountable on that too, because it
You
slips
do,
in.
'cause
Right?
it's
Last night
easy.
it slips in. Kaylee started talking about business. I'm
I'm
looking
like,
at her
oh no.
I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just peppering with business topics. Reset.
Hold on, hit the buzzer. I like that, the idea of the line in the sand, because it's easy to slip into and have, we work together in this podcast. We don't work together on everything else, but you don't want to make work the topic all the time, or you want to make sure that you're allowing the time. I love the idea of kind of like, all right, dinner time rule here on, it's about us and our lives, and
Family,
family,
yeah,
leave the business behind.
absolutely.
So you all talked about conflict resolution a little bit, and I'd love to hear. I kind of want to, and either of you can take this. Hit the buzzer first. Can you think of a time when one of you screwed up and like really stepped in it? And how did you confront that? And how did you guys work through that time together?
So how do you define screw up?
Yeah.
I'll leave that
And
open
that's
and
up to
free form for you.
like I was in the wrong and I had to admit it.
You want to hear a funny one? Tell them the chili story, honey.
Yeah. So one thing is we don't tend to remember. We don't remember the details of past arguments because we truly did resolve them. So sometimes a lot of stuff, I know we've done these things, but it's only the funny ones stick out, right?
Or the small ones.
Because it's laughable. I mean, it's just like, yeah, that was really stupid. It's not going to create any animosity between the two of us. It's just like, that was stupid. Why do you even argue about that? But it's we recognizing we screwed up and being man enough is always challenging, especially for me, growing up in an Asian culture. And I don't know if it's just an Asian thing, but I think as a man, a lot of times we don't want to admit being wrong. And so just being able to admit being wrong it can be challenging, and I've done it. I don't have a specific example right now, except for the green chili story, right? When the joke around our house is Kaylee would come in the office in the middle of the day and say, "What do you want for dinner?" And I would inevitably say, "I don't know." And then she'd get frustrated. So one day,
this happened. It's all the time.
I
don't know why I keep asking.
So one day I'm like looking through the recipes online and I go, "Oh, this looks really good." So I go in the dining room and I say, "Hey, honey, I know what I want for dinner. I found this great recipe. It's called green chili beef stew." And so she asked me, "Well, what makes it green?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what makes it green?" She's like, "What makes the chili green?" And I said, "It's grown green. It comes that way. It's born that way. It's a green chili." And she's like, "What? I don't get it." She's like, how do you make the chili green?" I go, it's a green chili. That's how it's grown. It comes out of the ground that way. And she's just like, so we're going round and round and round. And I asked her,
he's like, "You've seen it before." I went, "No, I haven't."
Yeah. I said, haven't you seen a green chili before? And she says, "No." And I get totally frustrated. I go, we cook. I was like, on weekends we'll cook together. So weekdays she cooks, to let me work all the way up to dinner time. But on weekends I'll take the lead on the menu and then we cook together. And I know we've used green chilies before. And so when she said I've never seen one, I got really frustrated. And so that's when I stopped and I'm like, I paused and I stepped back and I asked her, "So what are you thinking about when I say green chili?" And she was talking about.
So it was in the month of March, St. Patty's, and you know how they have green beer and all the different green foods. So I'm thinking of green chili beans, like the firemen make at the fire station, that have had like the dish that have had like green food coloring or something in it in my mind. But he's totally thinking
the vegetable.
Yeah. And so we almost got into a complete argument over that.
We were about to get into this.
He was getting so upset with me. He's like, "I know you've seen it." I'm like, "No, I haven't."
Yeah, because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, we've cooked with green chilies before. And so the minute she said no, I'm like, what? And so that almost turned on to something, but that goes into clarification, right? That you can literally be talking about the same.
You were able to step back, right? You step back, you said, got clarification, just said, "Wait a minute, we're arguing about something that we're not even arguing about the same thing," right?
We're arguing over the same words, but thinking two different things.
Right.
different meaning. Well, it's funny because that kind of goes to, in couples and relationships, everybody has their own vantage or viewpoint or opinion or feeling on something, and they're
So
both right.
true.
And they're both right. Like Kay Lee was thinking, this is what I know, and I know
That was your truth.
I've seen green stuff before. And what do you mean green chili? And Robert, you're thinking, no, we've cooked with this thing. It's green and it's a chili. Come on. So you each had your own viewpoints, and in your own mind, they were correct, right? And that's a hard thing to work through because you feel absolutely that you're not crazy and that you know what you're thinking or talking about.
I thought I was going crazy though. I was like, what? Am I married to the same woman? That's amazing how little things like that can become really big issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look back, most of our, arguments are kind of silly. Like if you're on the outside looking in, you're like, why are you arguing about this? Right? And so, like even one time, it goes both ways, but sometimes we'll start arguing and I'll stop and I'll ask her, do you really want to argue about this? And she'll go like, no. I'll do the same thing though. She'll say it to me and I'm like, don't throw that in my face. I go, no, I don't want to argue about it, but I want to be upset right at the moment. Give me 10 seconds and then we'll get over it. Because I'm like, yeah, it is stupid. But
Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, so the key in that situation, right, is to change is to step back and get a different perspective. Or you ask the question saying, what are you seeing in your mind when I say green chili? Right. And it could have been, a totally different subject. But if you say, hey, wait a minute, when I say that, what are you thinking it's going to be versus what it is? And so you got to the root of it. And even though it was a funny, silly thing, you're able to move it to the side and laugh about it, as opposed to having it be an argument that, creates.
Well, we have, in addition to our 3 pillars that we just talked about, 11 more that we believe are important in any successful relationship. And I think you may have that list in front of you. Of those 11 remaining pillars, I'm going to ask you, Kay Lee, first, is there one that really resonates and sticks out to you, one that's really important to you, and why?
I think they're all important, but the one that really sticks out to me is fun, because I'm all about life is too short and you need to go have fun and laugh, enjoy yourself, don't sweat the small stuff, and yeah.
So give me an example of a way that you have fun. What is something you like to do to have fun together?
Gosh, we could do just about anything, but snow skiing. We're going to go to Park City and go snow skiing. So we're really excited about
in 3 days. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Very nice.
Wow, coming up soon. That's great.
So a trip together sounds awesome. How about for you, Robert? Is there a pillar that stands out to you that you resonate most with?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask us this, and I was looking at this before we even got an interview, and I was like, I figured you're going to ask me something like this, and it's so hard. I mean, trust and honesty, patience, intimacy, lasting love, selflessness, unity, servant leadership, faith, moral code, appreciation, security, fun and humor. And I'm like, how do you choose one?
I know.
Right? And so I think sometimes it's a season that you're in that one will stick out more than the other. And so for me right now, as you're asking me today, I'd say appreciation. And that's kind of goes along to my word for the year, which is intentional. And I just know that, as high achievers, a lot of times we don't stop and smell the roses. And being able to appreciate even the small things. It's not just the big accomplishments. And a lot of times we wait to show appreciation or celebrate when we've hit some major milestone, instead of really appreciating the everyday, even the small things, like, being able to, just being able to go, be able to golf in the middle of winter here in Southern California, right? Or being able to take the dog for a walk and not freeze my chili beans off, like some parts of the country are at the moment. And just those little moments we get to do together, to work together, to life together, right? So right now, as you asked me the question today, it'd be appreciation.
So what's the best compliment you've gotten from Kay Lee lately?
Ooh. I have to say she's way better at that than I am. She's much the encourager. I'm much more the, okay, we got this done, let's move to the next task. So I think it goes back to it goes back to what I just said about using appreciation, having that stick out, so I can show appreciation even to her. And Kaylee's very good at that. But the thing that I think she did very well, and I'll just go back to kind of early or on in our marriage, is she would always basically say that I know you'll make the best decision for us. And there was it may not sound like a big deal, but a lot of times when we're in the middle of argument, especially as husband and wife, we like dig our heels in and we got to be right, or I got to be right. And then the moment she said that one time, that I know you'll make the best decision for us, it stopped me in my tracks. And it no longer became about my ego and my what I thought was the best thing to do or what I thought was smart. It became, yeah, is this the best decision for us? Right now, I'm thinking for two, and you think I would know that, but I didn't. Especially in an argument, you're already thinking about yourself. You're in survival mode. But the minute she said that, I'm like, oh, okay, I had to really think things through. And I actually ended up, whatever her suggestion was, I remember had a disagreement about something, but I ended up gravitating to, her, what she thought, what her suggestion was. Because as I started to process what is the best decision for us, it was no longer about me, in my opinion. And then I realized, oh, I think what she had to say was actually valid. And things like that she says has built me up as a husband, as a leader. Because, and too many times we've seen in relationships where the wife will just tear the husband down and call him good for nothing or stupid, or you're always doing this, you always make the wrong decision, whatever, just all these kind of things. And then Kaylee was always good about encouraging me up. And to me, I would say I'm a better leader today, and more self confident about myself because of how she raised me up, or how she kind of built me up with her words. Um,
Sure. That's beautiful. That's a great example of appreciation, and when your spouse builds you up like that and makes you the best that you can be. It also speaks to her commitment. And so, Kaylee, I have a question for you. If you could go back to your unmarried self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would go back and I say, take more risks, step out and try new things. And that kind of happened with you, honey, because when I was single, uh, I remember dating different people and it didn't work out. And then all of a sudden I had to change my mindset and say, you know what? I told my girlfriends, and I meant this in a healthy way. I said, you know what? Set me up with anybody that you know that's single, because I'll go out with anybody once in a healthy way. Not like I don't want crazy or anything like that. But so I had to open up in my horizons and go out with somebody who I normally hadn't gone out with, and that was Robert. And I'm like, oh my gosh, boy, was I surprised.
yeah.
So all I have to say is I would have liked to have made stepped out more and taken more risks.
Great. Okay. How about you, Robert? If you went back to your unmarried self and put your hands on your own shoulder and said, "Here's the one thing, piece of advice I can give you," what would that be?
Yeah, this is gonna sound like a cop out, but it's the same word, risk. Because, and I was asked the same question on another interview, and I said, yeah, risk. I'm very risk averse, and I was raised risk averse. So, my dad just said, go to school, get a job, and get a good job, and plan for your retirement. Basically, that was about it. But, doing your own business was not part of the plan. That was never something instilled in me. And just in general, I just wasn't a big risk taker. So, working a Fortune 500 company was nice. It was less risky. There's relative job security, but you get a regular paycheck, you get your bonuses, and company cars and all that kind of stuff. So when it came to the thought of starting our own business, it was kind of it was interesting. I have to take a step back and go, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. And and now even with our own business, now that's not a big deal. Now it's even in business, some of the other things that we're doing with our book and some of the other things that we're venturing into, there's more and more risk. And I've been over the years been taking more risks, calculated risks, not just be a renegade and just be just just all over the board, but taking calculated risks, but willing to get out there and be a little bit vulnerable, right? Because it's new, it's not safe. What if it goes wrong, right? And so just being able, as I've gotten older and as years progress, I'm taking more and more risk, and are seeing not everything works out, but most of them do. But in the end, you're progressing so much greater and faster when you're able to step out and get out of your comfort zone. Right. So it's not just in business, but it's just in life in general, because some people play it safe just personally, not want to travel. I mean, we know people that just don't want to even leave their state or their city. Right. Just that's a risk for some people, is just getting outside of your own city borders. And so just stuff like that, anything. So when I'm saying risk, it's not just about business, it's just about in general, stepping out there, out of your comfort zone. Yeah. And and life is so much better and richer outside of your little bubble.
Yeah, that's great.
Love hearing that.
Well, thank you both so much. This has been an excellent time together. We have really enjoyed hearing all the great pearls that you've had to offer through your relationship. And we're just excited that you were willing to sit down and share all of that with us and with our listeners.
We appreciate that. If people want to follow you, learn more about you, and see what you do, where can people find you?
Well, you go to our main website is marriedentrepreneur.co. So we do serve and help entrepreneur couples create greater work-life balance. And then we also on Instagram and Facebook, our handles at Power Couples by Design. So you can follow us that way as well. And then on our website, there's a number of different free downloads you can have, as well as our own podcast, Power Up Your Marriage and Business.
Terrific. And you have a book. You have the book Tandem, correct? Also, if people want to read and learn a little bit more about working together.
Yes. thetandembook.com
is the website. Yeah.
Is
Tandem,
the
the
website.
Married Entrepreneur
Guide for better work-life balance.
Yeah.
Great.
Love that. We have really listened to and have learned a lot about people who are, working together, living together. That is becoming a very common scenario for us. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're doing the same thing, I would suggest you look these two up. It would be a great learning opportunity.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. We look forward to connecting again soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Take care.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.